Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. Today's topic is going to be about how to give advice. Now, seemingly, like it's one of those things that as soon as you read it, as soon as I say it out loud, you're going to say, damn, this video is irrelevant. This video is unnecessary. This is how you give advice. You go up to someone, you go, okay, this is what you need to do. Look, maybe you can say, maybe those words can leave your mouth, but to have someone take it in, completely understand you, and then follow up on that advice, that's another story. The reason why giving advice is so complex is I believe realities are very subjective. For example, we might be in a situation where I'm unhappy and you say, well, Daniel, when I'm unhappy, I salsa dance. So you should start salsa dancing. It'll make you happy too. There's a little bit of objectiveness in there where you go, okay, well, I know dancing and moving my body is going to make me feel better. So it's going to make you feel better. However, just because you have one way of dealing with a problem doesn't mean that another person has that exact same way of dealing with a problem. So the complexities arrive when people are, first of all, the problem that they're facing, is it something that we've faced before? If we have, we can use our own experience to help guide the advice that we may give. If it's a problem that we have not dealt with before, that means this is foreign territory for us as well. So the question becomes, how do you give advice on something that you've never personally dealt with? If you've never touched drugs and your good friend's talking about battling his addiction with cocaine, what do you say to that? And you say, well, you know, I was once eating too many chocolates when I was young, so I know what you mean. Like there's a distance, there's a gap there, so how do we bridge that gap? And one solution for you, is that going to be the same solution that can help your friend or family member, or whoever it is out? The very first thing that we need to do before we give advice, and this is so important, if you don't remember anything from this video, remember this, is this. We have to first make sure that the individual, and this might be even ourselves, that they formulate the problem correctly. Meaning, what is the problem exactly? Specify. Too many people don't specify the problem, and then they give out advice wrongly. Here's why that's a big deal. Imagine if you went to the doctor. He misdiagnosed you, and then he gave you medication for the diagnosis that you didn't actually have. Imagine you got a false positive. A false positive means you go to the doctor and he says you have blank, but you really don't. You go to the doctor one day and he says you have cancer. You don't have cancer, but it's a misdiagnosis. So you start freaking out. And he starts giving you medication for the cancer. He starts sending you to chemotherapy, your hair starts falling up, you start getting all this radiation, you're stressed out, you're not sleeping well, your diet's in the gutter, and it turns out you didn't even have cancer. So not only did the medication not help you, it was actually detrimental to your health. So one thing that I see all the time is someone comes and says something, they give a piece of information, and then a person assumes the problem, and then they start giving their advice. You start shoving a medication down their throat after you've made a diagnosis in your head, which you're not 100% sure of. Folks, I'm saying this from a place of love. I'm saying this because I've been in both boats where someone has assumed my situation versus when I've assumed someone else's situation. A literal example I can give you from a counseling course that I took was this. I was talking to a classmate of mine, we were role playing, and in this role play, she was upset because let's forget what I just said, her boyfriend had cheated on her. Her boyfriend was unfaithful, she'd shown up to a counselor, and I was playing the role of the counselor. And afterwards, as you know, we're talking, my instructor sitting there and he's just listening to the conversation. He's looking at cues, he's marking, doing different things. When we finish our talk, it's about 5-10 minutes long. He says, Daniel, what's the problem? And I go, well, the problem's that her partner cheated on her. He goes, Daniel, who cares? People cheat on each other all the time. Not everyone who gets cheated on goes to the counselor. So what's the problem? And I sat there and I went, well, clearly the cheating's the problem. Otherwise, she wouldn't have shown up to the counselor. He goes, what about the cheating is the problem exactly? And I go, I was so dumbfounded. Like, I've never thought about it like this. And I said, well, she's angry that he cheated. Like, she's angry and like she feels betrayed and stuff. And he goes, do you know she feels angry? Or are you assuming she does? Does she feel angry that she got cheated on, or does she feel upset? Which one is it? And I remember looked at him, I went, does it matter? He said, it absolutely does. If that girl comes into a counselor and says, my partner cheated on me, and she says, I am angry, I'm mad, everything that I did for him, all the time that we spent together, it's all wasted, I want to take revenge, I should have cheated on him. Folks, what do you hear? What's the narrative? The narrative is betrayal. The narrative is revenge. The narrative is wasted time. The narrative is feeling like someone's disloyal and you want to take it out on someone and you have this rage, you have this frustration. That's one narrative. But if she comes to a counselor and says, look, my partner cheated on me and I'm so upset. I feel like I'm a terrible person. Specifically, I think I'm a terrible girlfriend. I'm just a terrible person overall. I'm probably not even a good friend either. And I feel guilty. Maybe if I would have been better to him, maybe he wouldn't have cheated. Folks, that's a completely different narrative. The problem isn't anger in that one. It's not revenge. It's self-esteem. The problem is character. The problem is these self-defeating, possibly irrational beliefs that are putting her self-esteem in the gutter. And now she's questioning herself. She's questioning her behavior. So these are two completely different stories. But if you're so quick to diagnose, say the problem's cheating, what about the cheating? What a very, very good kind of stem sentence that I've never forgotten that he told me, and I'm going to tell you, I've said it before because I want you to use it with your friends and family, is this. So you take that situation and you insert it into this. Ready? What does blank mean to you? So in this example, you might say, what does getting cheated on mean to you? That's so important because different events, the same event in this scenario, for example, infidelity, having an affair, being unfaithful, means different things for different people. If you tell me that you're angry and you're pissed off and you want to key his car, my response is going to be different to you than you saying, Daniel, I feel bummed out. I feel like I'm not worthy of his love, just like I'm not worthy of my father's love. That's why my dad left. The same reason. Like, it's a totally different story. And for me to give advice to those people simply based on the fact that the event was similar, when there's two different people with their own personalities, their own experiences, their own takeaways from that experience, I think it's inappropriate. And I think inappropriate doesn't do just how wrong it is. We see this a lot in the workplace. I've said this before, you're working maybe in what's the word I'm looking for? In an office type place. There's a problem with the budgets and the numbers. 2-3 people get together. You have to figure out a problem fast in 10 or 15 minutes. A lot of the time it's black and white. You've got the answer immediately. You can put it together. Okay, this is what we need to do. No time for feelings, no time for the fluff. This is how we're going to go forward. Then that guy, and usually it's a guy, when he goes home to his girlfriend or wife, again, this is usually a woman, they might fall into a problem where there's a conflict. And he goes, okay, what's the problem? How can I solve it? And she might say something like, well, I feel like you haven't been here lately. Or like, I don't feel as loved. Or, you spend all your time at work. So he says, okay, what do you want? Do you want me to buy you flowers? I'll buy you flowers. Do you want to go on a date tonight? We'll go out on a date tonight. The idea here being is we get minimum information, and then based on that, we want to find the quickest solution possible. Okay? Logically, it makes a lot of sense. Again, the only problem is I hope that we're right. So I'm not saying if you're talking to your partner and she says, look, I feel like you spend a lot of time at work, we don't spend enough time together, and you saying, let's go out on a date, I'll buy you flowers, is a bad thing. Not at all. But I'm saying be careful. Just because everyone's girlfriend says something like that doesn't mean the solution to all those is, oh, let's go out on a date. She might say, I don't feel that happy around you. And then you saying, well, let's go, I'll buy you a present. Does that solve the problem? What is the problem exactly? What do you mean? What do you mean I'm at work too much? Okay, so instead of going to work, I'll just go playing golf instead. Oh, you want to do something together? Okay. How about we go watch a movie? Oh, no? Oh, you want to speak? Okay. You want to have a discussion? Oh, no? Oh, you don't want to have a discussion. You just want me to listen. You want to do the talking. You just want me to listen. Okay, I understood. Do you see how different that is from, oh, okay, my girlfriend's lonely, let's go watch a movie together. Or let's go swim, or let's go to the gym together. So it's extremely important. One of the things, God bless humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers, he said, look, the only way that I would begin speaking to my clients is I would wait for them to tell me what's going on. Then I would summarize to the best of my abilities the problem as I have understood it. If my client listens to the summary that I have made of his or her story and approves and goes, yup, that's exactly how I feel, 100%, you hit the nail right on the head, then I proceed. Because there's a lot of times where someone says something like, we'll go back to that example. Daniel, my partner cheated on me, and I feel pretty bummed out right now. Again, in order to understand that me and you are on the same boat, and folks, it sounds silly, it sounds clunky, it sounds inorganic, and it should, because if this is the first time you're hearing of this, it's normal. It's going to sound super artificial, but I promise you, long term, you can see the effects. And if I go, well, look, Rachel, what you're telling me is you're pretty upset because your boyfriend cheated on you. Is that right? And then she goes, well, no, I'm not upset. I'm annoyed. I'm irritated. Or maybe they go, yeah, Daniel, like you nailed it. Yeah, I am upset. It's like, oh, well, tell me more about that. What do you mean by that? And she goes, well, like I liked him a lot and we've been together for 3 years and I thought things were going to last and I really thought he was the one. But it turns out he's not the guy who I thought he was. Oh, okay. All right. That's where the story is going now. So is it either... Now, then again, you ask questions, you discuss. The next thing that would come to my mind based off that is, what does that say about you? You wrongly perceived him to be a good guy when he wasn't. You perceived him to be a certain kind of way and you were wrong in your analysis. What is your takeaway from that? Is it, wow, I'm not a good judge of character. I feel upset because of how stupid I was to think he was a good guy? Is that the conclusion you come to? Or is it, wow, he's a real piece of garbage. He's a terrible person. You know what? Men are terrible people. Screw men. Like, what's the conclusion you come to? So when we want to identify a problem, the first thing that we do is, when the person gives us information, two big things I love to say are, tell me more about that and expand on that. And also, what do you mean by that? Because sometimes someone will say something like, man, these girls are crazy. You know what I mean? And then you might sit there and go, no, I'm not sure what you mean. Who do you mean by girls? Do you mean your girlfriend? Are you talking about your coworker? All women in general? And what do you mean by crazy? Like they're fun? Like they're fun to hang around? Or like they drive you crazy? What does that mean? So what do you mean by that? Tell me more about that. Expand. Keep going. And generally, believe it or not, silence. Like if someone says something like, work's been really terrible as of late. Just a head nod. Just like, oh, okay. But you're looking at them in the eyes and there's silence. It kind of allows them to keep talking. So that's another thing you could do. So the very first thing is we want to help whoever individual this is, identify the problem. What is the problem exactly? Because if you show up and you go, well, Daniel, my partner cheated on me, that's not a problem. It's not. It's in the past now. It happened. There's nothing we can do about it. The problem is, ready for it? Your thoughts and feelings about it. How it's making you feel is the problem. The fact that you go to work and you're so angry about what happened so that you can't focus on your work and now your boss is getting mad at you, that's the problem. Your interpretation of the event, of what's happened, and all that heavy weight on your chest, that's the problem. Not the event happened. It's gone. The question is, how do we address the feelings that have remained? How can we address your thoughts and your own unique takeaways of that event? That's the problem. So when people say, oh man, Jennifer cheated on me, and then they go, oh bro, don't worry about Jennifer, let's go out drinking tonight. You never talked about what the problem was. There's an event that happened, and now we have to guess what the problem is. Maybe he's sad. That could be a good guess. Maybe he feels angry. Maybe he's annoyed. Maybe he feels anxious being around women because she screwed him over. So now he thinks that every woman's going to screw him over. Like, what is the problem here exactly? Is it a question of identity? Am I good enough to be in a relationship with someone? Is it a question of, like, I'm unlovable? My last 2 girlfriends left me, now she's leaving me. I must be the problem. There's something wrong with me. Is the problem people are out to get me and they want to use me, and I'm kind, and every time I've been kind, they've come around and they've left me? Kind people are not good people. Kind people get taken advantage of, and I will not be taken advantage of. What do you hear when I'm speaking? Forget the words. What do you read between the lines? If your guess is hurt, if your guess is scared, insecure, that's what I'd guess as well. You go, oh, you're hurt. You are hurting and you don't want to get hurt again. And the way that your mind has created these defenses to go, no more being kind, no more Mr. Nice Guy, or no more Mr. Nice Gal, because they get manipulated. So the problem is you are hurt. You are upset, you are insecure, and you are worried about people leaving you. So you build up this tough guy act that I don't care. I don't care, leave me, sure. I don't care about you anyways. Because if you pretend that you don't care, it'll somehow hurt less when they do eventually leave. And guess what? It turns to a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because you're not going to open up. You're not going to be expressive. You're not going to hug people and kiss them. Why? Because it makes it harder when they walk out of your life. So you're going to act cold towards people. And that's why people don't want to be your friend. Because you act cold. You act like you don't care. You push them out the door. Why? Because God forbid they leave your life on their own accord. So at least this way you push them out and you were aware of it. At least when they stab you in the front as they're looking you in the eye, as opposed to stabbing you in the back. The problem is, what if they weren't going to leave your life? And what if this anxiety, macho, arrogant, defensive behavior pushed them out? What if you're the reason you're lonely? Do you see how far you can go with this, folks? Now, if you're talking to a friend and she says, yeah, my friend cheated on me, and immediately you just start hitting her with all this, it's like, have I made the correct, I don't even want to say diagnosis, but just for the analogy to get that point across, like, am I right here? Is this the right narrative? And the best thing you can do is check. Like, okay, if I'm hearing you correctly, this is what you're telling me. You feel betrayed because you completely trusted them and now they turn their back on you. Am I right? Am I leaving anything out? And once they say, yup, now you have a better understanding. And again, recognizing what the problem is, it's not so much the event as the feelings that it gives rise to in the individual. If someone close to you passes away, and I hope they don't go too soon or before their time. But if that was to happen in a loved one, and you were a robot and you didn't feel anything, there's no problem here. The problem comes because of those feelings that you have for that person when they passed away. Oh my God, I'm never going to see her again. I'm never going to talk to her again. She's never going to hold me again. I feel upset. I feel broken. I feel horrific. I feel anxious. I feel depressed. That's the problem. And then you come in and then you start to decipher it. And then again, so if you've listened to one thing, what's the problem? What's the problem? If you remember the beginning, to say the problem is, well, you just lost a loved one. So what? People lose loved ones all the time. What does, ready for this? Chef's kiss. What does losing that loved one mean to you? And they say, well, Daniel, I've never had a good relationship with my father. We haven't spoken in 3 years. And when he died, I felt like I lost my father a long time ago. I felt like he had died the moment we stopped talking to each other. But I guess when he really, really died, I felt nothing but regret for the way I treated him. And then you sit back and you go, ah. If I'm hearing you correctly, maybe the first time you had a mentality of, oh, you're dead to me. I don't care about what happens to you anymore. But then when you actually heard of him passing away, you recognize that that wasn't true. And how much he actually did mean to you. Boom. Now, what I'm saying is it's really choreographed. I mean, I'm really putting it together. But I just want to show you how those little things along the way, whether you're thinking about your own problems, whether you want to give advice, this idea of formulate the problem. What is it? What are the feelings or thoughts that are problematic? What does blank mean to you? You get someone to keep talking. So you say, tell me more about that. Or expand on that idea. Or, what do you mean? Or, oh, interesting. Just get them to keep going. And once we do this, we can identify the problem. And again, the problem is the feelings and the thoughts. And then the overall process of what counseling is making sure that that person, because sometimes when someone's upset, they're not even aware of why they're upset. So we want to make sure they're aware exactly why they're upset. And then if we look at arguably the most promising form of therapy, CBT, if you Google it, cognitive behavioral therapy. And there's so many different branches and philosophies attached to it. But one of the big ones is attacking those false beliefs and replacing them with new ones. So if your belief is, I'm a terrible person, that's why my boyfriend left me, because I'm not good enough. How can we, over time, change that belief? How can we remove that completely, disprove that, and insert a new belief which says two people can be great, caring, and loving, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be in a perfect relationship with each other. You can have two loving and kind people, but just you stick any two loving, kind people together doesn't mean you're going to be soulmates. And it would be irrational to think otherwise. And when we change our belief, it changes our thoughts. And when we change our thoughts, it changes our feelings. And my friends, there goes the problem. What I've just done is a huge oversimplification of the counseling process. So many different theories and methods and stories that are long and a lot more complex than this. But I just wanted to give you a surface level understanding of how important those seemingly small, insignificant things are in formulating the problem, getting the person to talk, and then when we understand the problem, or so we think to the best of our abilities, and we've double checked, then we can start looking at how to give advice. So I understand this video was about how to give advice, but so many people jump over what we've just talked about that the advice part almost becomes irrelevant. Because if you're assuming what the problem is, then you're going to have another problem of giving people unnecessary advice that's not only helpful, but that could be harmful. So most likely, what we'll do is we'll make a part 2 to this video. Number 1 being understanding what the problem is. And in part 2, we'll actually talk about logical, pragmatic steps to give someone about overcoming this problem. Thanks for listening, everybody. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. And please, when I say take care of yourselves, I mean it. Not just physically, not just eating the right foods and sleep and exercise, but mentally. Take time out. Meditate. See your friends. Sing, dance. Whatever brings you happiness. Don't feel guilty to indulge in pleasure from time to time. Goodbye, folks. Stay safe.